Warzone 4 just came out, and I know you're looking for the best settings. I put in a total of 7+ days on this game, so you don't have to. I'll be going over all the settings that you have to have, and I even have one setting that I promise you not even the pros have on. I promise you that's not clickbait. Wait for the end of the video. This will literally change your aim. For the first setting, I want to go over button layout. This is one of those settings that is preference, but I'm going to tell you what I personally like. First, head over to your settings and hit controller, and then stay on this controller tab and scroll down to the button layout. I personally use tactical flipped. A lot of people use tactical or default. At the end of the day, whether you choose to use tactical or default, one thing I do want you to make sure is make sure you're playing on flip. Please, please, please do not play on triggers unless you have some type of trigger stops or mouse clicks on your triggers. This is going to help reduce the travel time to activate the button whenever you're aiming or shooting your gun. When using your triggers, you have to push that down all the way down or all the way up. When it comes to using your L1 or R1, it's instant. That is a button instead of a trigger, which, as you know in Call of Duty, every millisecond counts. Next, let's go over sensitivity. If there's anything that I want you to pay attention to in this video, is this right here. This is single-handedly the biggest mistake that every player makes, is playing on too high of a sense. Now, when it comes to Black Ops 6 and the new Warzone integration, they've changed the sensitivity and the way it feels. Pretty much 6.6 is now 7.7, 7.7 is now 8.8, etc., etc. My golden rule of thumb has always been to stay between 6 to 8 cents for the best possible aim. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and change that to 7 and 9 due to the changes to the aim assist, which we'll talk about in a bit. In my opinion, there's no need to go any higher than 9.9 sensitivity. Quite literally, all the best players in the world play anywhere from 6 to 8 or 6 to 9. Yes, there are those anomalies that play on a little bit of a higher sense, but the best players, and I'm talking the best in the world, play on 7.7, 6.6. I know you may be watching this and you might be thinking, oh, that's too slow. I need something faster. I need to be able to turn on players. If you have really good centering, there's no need to turn on anybody. Centering is single-handedly the most important thing to getting your aim down, and having the right sense is going to make that so much easier to lock onto your target. So if you're on 10.10 or any higher than that, and you're not dropping 50 bombs on the daily, turn that down. I promise you it's not worth it. Now, before we move on to the next one, hit R1 and go over to aiming. Click square on sensitivity multiplier. I personally leave these all on 1. Now, you can change this to whatever you want. If you do play it on 9.9, you can turn down your ADS sense to, let's say, 0.9 or 0.85. What this is going to do is make it to where whenever you're aiming down sight, that sensitivity is a little bit slower than normal. If you play on something like 8.8 or 9.9 and have a hard time tracking your opponents, you can turn this down just a tad. Me personally, I just leave this at 1. Moving on to the next one is dead zones. And honestly, back in Modern Warfare 3 and Modern Warfare 2, this wasn't that big of a deal, but they made some big changes in BO6 that you definitely need to change these. So let's go over the right stick first. Your right stick max, you can leave that at 99, and the right stick minimum, I personally always leave it at 2. Regardless whether I have stick drift or not, I always leave it at 2 because I want my aim to be consistent. Honestly, unless your stick drift is literally horrendous, there's no really need to raise this up anymore, because when your thumb is on the stick, your stick drift goes away. The max I would put this to is 5. Anything higher than that is going to make your aim feel sluggish. Moving on to the left stick, which has the biggest changes. For the left stick minimum, I have that at 0 just because I want to be able to move and use my omni movement to my advantage. I want my stick to be really, really sensitive, so anytime I'm trying to finesse with my movement, it activates immediately, which brings us on to the left stick maximum. If you see this ring right here, you'll see that the red zone has been pushed in. What this pretty much means is there's less distance that your left stick needs to travel for you to hit maximum sprint. I've turned my left stick maximum from 99 like every other game to 65 for this game. Black Ops 6 does have a slight delay when going into auto attack sprint, and this helps it feel just a little bit better. I promise you this will help reduce a lot of your dead slides. It won't completely remove them, but this will help. With that added tact sprint delay, you're just gonna have to figure out the timing to try to make sure that you get as minimal dead slides as possible. Now let's head over to your aiming tab, because these are actually really, really important. Go down to your aiming advanced settings, and we're gonna change a couple of these. For your ADS sensitivity transition timing, I want you to change that to instant. By default, it's set to gradual. What this means is as soon as you click your L1 to aim down sight, that ADS sensitivity kicks in immediately. Your aim is gonna feel a lot more snappy, and it's gonna feel less clunky. Then I want you to scroll down to your aim response curve. I want you guys to change this to dynamic if you don't already have this on. I promise you, if anybody is telling you to put on linear, they are literally trolling you. Do not listen to anybody telling you to play on linear. This is gonna make your aim feel snappier, but you're gonna miss way more shots. Dynamic is that balance between snappy and fluid. And I'm gonna be honest, dynamic just feels like aim assist is incredibly broken. Then go ahead and click square here, and it's gonna show your aim response curve slope. Honestly, I just leave this at 1. I wouldn't even mess with this. Now let's move over to the movement tab. There are some changes here, so let's get into it. For sprint assist, make sure you have your tac sprint assist on. From here, the most important thing is go ahead and click square, and I want you to make sure your sprint assist delay is on 0. This makes it to where your tag sprint activates immediately instead of having any type of delays. I have sprint assist sideways on and sprint assist backwards on as well. For my mantle assist, I have that off. I don't really feel the need to have this on. For crouch assist, I have it off. And corner slicing is a new mechanic. Some people do like it. Me personally, it gets in the way whenever I'm turning sideways. I don't like it, so I turn this off. Now let's go down to slide and dive behavior. This is genuinely the most important setting out of all of these, and that is make sure you are on hybrid. With Omni movement being introduced and how crazy this movement is, there is no reason for you to be on slide only or dive only, or even hold the slide or hold the dive. What hybrid does is give you the ability to tap the slide, but also tap the dive. I personally slide with R3. So if I want to tap the slide, all I have to do is click my R3 once. But if I want to dive, I would click down my left stick and then click R3 once, and then I tap to dive. This is a little bit hard at first, but I promise you it's worth it in the long run. Being able to slide and dive instantaneous is literally a huge advantage. So please make sure to switch to hybrid, and I promise you in a couple months, you'll be thanking yourself. For automatic airborne mantle, I have that partial. Sprint and restore, I have it on. Slide maintain sprints, I have it on. For parachute, automatic behavior, I have this off. Make sure you do not have this on. You want to try to get as low as possible to the ground before pulling your chute. It's muscle memory, you'll get it. Mantle cancels reload, I have that on. Then head over to your movement advanced settings. Honestly, these, I don't really mess with them that much because I do have auto tag sprint, but if you want to copy them, you can copy these if you want. Now, finally, let's head over to the combat tab. For this, there's a couple good settings here. Scroll down to your armor plate behavior, and I want you to make sure that you have that to apply all. This is going to make it to whenever you're putting on plates, it applies all 3 when holding down your triangle once, as opposed to just 1 at a time. Now, go over to your combat advanced settings. This one has some really good ones. Scroll down to your interact and reload behavior, and make sure this is prioritized interact. This makes it to whenever you're trying to pick up loot, it picks it up with just 1 hit of your square, as opposed to holding it down. You will have to hold to reload, which I promise you is not that big of a deal, and you'll develop the muscle memory. And lastly, I have sprint cancels reload on for this. So after combat advanced settings, I want you to go down to your overlay advanced settings. Here, I did make a couple changes for the inventory control. Instead of using the directional buttons and having to take my left thumb off my thumbstick to hit the buttons, I just use my stick now, which pretty much makes it to where I never have to take my left stick off my thumbstick. This is going to help my movement significantly whenever I'm opening my inventory while running or in a Warzone gunfight. Now let's go over to the graphic settings. I think I've spent a little bit too much time researching the best quality for performance when it comes to graphics. So I think I found it. Let me get into it. This, in my opinion, is the best bang for your buck when it comes to frames, but also wanting your game to not look like Play-Doh. First and foremost, make sure on full screen exclusive. When it comes to your refresh rate, make sure you're at the highest possible for your monitor. I personally play on 1440p. If you have the means necessary, I would highly recommend to switch to 1440p. You can see things that normally you can't see on a 1080p monitor. I love this. Now scroll down to sustainability. I have VSync off and VSync off in the menus as well. Custom frame limit, I have that set to unlimited. And the rest of these, I would just copy as is. Now the most important settings, let's head over to quality. And this is where we're actually going to play with the settings. Render resolution, make sure that's at 100. For upscaling and sharpening, I have this set to fidelity cast. Go ahead and click square and you can copy these settings here. These 3 right here don't really matter, so let's go down to the ones that actually do. Texture resolution, make sure to have that to very low. Depth of field, 100%, turn that off. Detail quality, have this low. Honestly, I would change this between low and normal if you want to see just things a little bit better. But if you care more for frames, leave it on low. Now for particle resolution, this one is the one that in my opinion, I found to make the biggest difference. If you want the most frames, obviously put this at very low. But if you want to get the best bang for your buck when it comes to frames and visual quality, I would put this at normal, and sometimes I even put this at high. Detail quality and particle resolution for me make the game look better without affecting too many frames. So if you care about visuals the most, I would put this up to high, and particle resolution, I'd put that to high. But if you care more about frames, put these both to as low as possible. With impacts, I have that on. Persistent effects, I have that off. Shader quality, low. On-demand texture streaming, minimal. Low texture streaming quality, low. Shadow quality, I have that very low. Screen space shadows off. Occlusion, screen space lighting, medium. Screen space reflections off. Static reflection quality, low. Tessellation off. Volumetric quality, low. Deferred physics quality off. Weather grid volumes quality off. And weather quality off. Now let's head over to the view tab and make sure you have your FOV at 120 to 110 if you're playing Warzone. I personally wouldn't go any lower than that because recoil gets a little bit crazy. Then scroll down 1 and make sure your ADS field of view is set to affected and not independent. This makes it to whenever you ADS, your FOV, let's say it's on 120, is 120 FOV whenever you're aim down sight. If you don't change this, it'll be like you're playing on 120 FOV regular, but whenever you aim down sight, you're on 60 FOV. Then go ahead and put your weapon field of view set to wide, vehicle field of view set to wide, world motion blur, please turn this off. Weapon motion blur, turn it off. First person camera movement, set this to least, and third-person camera, set it to least. Now let's go over the audio. Now some people use Artist War Audio. I personally don't. I just use loudness EQ. I have my speaker output set to stereo. You can put this at Windows default. To be honest, I personally don't see a difference. Now enhanced headphone mode, guys, don't spend $20. Save your money. For audio mix, I use the Treyarch mix, mono audio off, mute game styles with minimize off, mute licensed music off, asymmetrical hearing compensation off, configure frequency intensity. I don't have that on. Reduce tinnitus sound off, and then hit marker preset. Here's a little fun tip for you. If you love the BO4 hit markers, put this down to classic. I actually love this, and why this is set to default, I have no idea, but me personally, I like classic a lot better than default. Now lastly, let's go over interface, and there's a secret setting here that I promise you will make a huge difference. If you're on PC, head over to telemetry, hit square, and I have only 3 things on here. I have FPS, server latency, and packet loss. FPS, obviously, I want to know how many frames I'm getting. Server latency, I want to see which server I'm connecting to, and packet loss, just in case if I'm getting crazy lag. Now, after you're done with this, hit R1 and go over to your gameplay HUD. From here, I want you to change your minimap shape from round to square. What this is going to do is make your minimap bigger, so let's say somebody else is shooting on your minimap, you can see more of the area. Now, the last and final tip, which I promise you will be worth it, is head over down to Crosshair. Go ahead and click square. This is going to open a menu to customize your reticle however you want. Black Ops 6 has introduced the ability to change the color of your actual crosshair. So me being the nerd that I am, I researched and tried to figure out what is the best color for the eye. Well, it turns out the color of the tennis ball is the fastest color that the eye can track. So I went ahead and looked up the color of a tennis ball. I tried it out, didn't like it as much, tuned it just a bit, and in my opinion, I found the perfect color for your reticle. This is gonna make centering super easy. That way you never lose sight of your center dot. So go down to the crosshair color, click this, and then make sure to go down to the hex code. The hex code is FFFF00. This is like a neon yellow. I gave this to DS Bitful and Adrian, and they absolutely love it. I promise you, switch to this and you will see a difference. Make sure you have your crosshair dot on, and make sure you have your center dot scale set to largest to make sure that center dot is as big and as fat as possible. If it's too big for you and you can't handle that girth, put it down to larger, or you can even put it down to default.